You're smart, you're motivated, you want to do something big. You're on the verge of being a young boss, and we're going to help you get there. I'm your host, Isabel Garino, and welcome to the Young Boss Podcast, where youth is your power. Do you want to make $650K in a week? This week's guest did that off of one PPE sale during COVID. We talk about why discipline and consistency is the absolute key to success, why the average person lacks imagination, and why you should take your parents' advice with a grain of salt. We sat down with the inspiring and successful Trevor Watters, CEO of Biomedic Consulting. We're playing chess, not checkers, baby. Let's dive in. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited that you're here. We've known each other forever. You've always dabbled in entrepreneurship. What got you even down this path? What got you started? Or did you work a corporate job?
Yeah, of course.
Tell me about it.
You know, I think corporate job was tough for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a person that has the mind of structure.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like, oh, you need to follow all of these rules, make sure your expense report is submitted at this exact time. Like for me, the way my mindset works is I just want to crush deals, right? I want to go out, network, leverage my skills that I do have, right? And my strengths. That structured environment was not easy for me to do. And I kind of realized early on, I started working at LabCorp, right? They're a $1 billion corporation. I was a sales rep for them right out of college. And, you know, it was funny. It's just so structured. And I'm more of like a loose, casual guy, right? So I worked there for 2 years. I realized I hated corporate America.
Yeah.
I said, I could do this better on my own.
Okay.
And that's where consultant side of me began, of saying, okay, this is where I need to be.
Okay. So tell me about that first business that you started.
Sure. So I started a company called Denali Medical Group. That was my first consulting company. And I think, you know, ultimately identified that there was a lot of holes and a lot of crumbs that could be picked up from, right? You know, when you work for a corporation, you can only sell what they offer. If it's not what's best for the customer or the client, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You have to either sell it or get fired.
Yep.
Right? Or you lose your bonuses.
Yep.
And so your hands are, you know, handcuffed. So what happened is I started realizing that these practices, as I developed good relationships with them, they were like, hey, you know, can you help me with this? Oh, can't offer you that. Our company doesn't offer that.
Yeah.
Right? And I realized quickly that there was this huge need for somebody who could do an incumbent service of everything.
Yeah.
And when I started Denali Medical Group, I just got married, just got a dog, just bought our third house.
Okay, so you had a lot of reasons to be successful in this.
I'm telling you, I worked like I had a pit bull chasing me down the street.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And like a meat hanging off my back. So because I didn't have an option.
Yeah.
Nicole was pregnant, you know, we just had our daughter. She was barely out of the hospital.
Yeah.
And I finally made my first paycheck, right? So I went like 5 months without a first paycheck, investing in the business, growing the pipeline, and it was like one of these really unique experiences.
Were you scared?
I was terrified. Yeah.
Was Nicole like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
But she believed me that I had a plan, and she trusted me, and I think that's the ultimate thing that has helped me be successful is the spouse that you pick to support you.
Yeah.
Right?
Huge.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, I as much as Nicole handles everything at the house, it's like she's our CEO of the home.
Yeah.
You know, but she allows me to take those chances, go after those things, be scared. I internalize all that stuff, but it worked out. And I think that's what most people need to realize is that you keep your head down, you stay focused, you delay your gratification, and you'll get it going.
Okay, so you had success with that company because you saw the hole in the market, you decided to go out and fill it. Then you've done so many things since. We were chatting, you know, off air about how you are like the king of pivoting. Yeah. You see an opportunity and you're like, oh, I'm going to go for that. You have no fear of like, you know, it seems like from the outside perspective, you have no fear of like, what if this doesn't work? You're like, no, I believe in it so much it's going to work. So talk to me about some of the pivots you've since made. Yeah.
So, you know, pivoting is the name of the game, right? If you can't handle a pivot, you got to figure out how to do that, right? And I think that, have I made bad pivots? Of course. Have I made wrong turns where a major corporation owed me $300,000, right? And in my industry, when you're working with the healthcare side of things, you know, something can change just like that because the insurance companies are the judge, jury, and executioner, right? So what they're paying for today, they might decide next month we're not going to pay for that, right? So you could be making $100,000 a month on one product, and then the insurance companies come out and say, we're no longer going to cover this product.
And you're screwed?
Yeah, you go like, holy crap. Now, corporations that I have worked with, other vendors, right? I would say, what does my consulting company do? I find vendors that have great services for the clients that I'm working with, my doctors. I'll go and I'll find those clients. I'll negotiate a relationship with that vendor and a fee.
Okay.
And I'll bring their services to my doctors to make sure that, they're constantly improving their patient care. They're constantly improving, their opportunity to make revenue or to provide better services to their patients.
Were you aware of those changes in the game from your prior experience doing this, or did you learn that when you started your own thing?
I learned it the hard way.
Okay.
I was doing $100,000 a month.
Yeah.
I was flying high. It was my first business. I thought, this is unbelievable. I can't believe this is happening, and I was like, I bought my F-250 cash. I bought, another house, right, as another rental property. I was paying down my homes. I was buying, these things that in the short term, you're thinking, this is great. It makes me feel good right now, because you don't think that the end can come like that in this industry. And then it got cut. And I'll tell you, it was one of those situations where I had probably a month of anxiety, 3 a.m. night sweats, because I got the stay-at-home wife, nobody to fall back on. I had, my 2 kids at this point, and you're going, you don't have a choice but to pivot and to pivot quickly. And so that's where, I continue to look for new products, new services. When you're saying you're opportunistic, because that Trevor Watters played one chess piece at a time. Yeah. Right? And the Trevor Watters now plays 5 chess pieces. Right? So that I'm 5 steps ahead where everybody else is just 1. Yep. So it kind of minimizes that chance of happening to me again.
Okay. When COVID happened, you immediately jumped into the PPE game, and even COVID testing. Every time I got a COVID test, it was through your center.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
Talk to me about that. Was that, and again, where you saw a situation, you said opportunity and just went for it, or did you kind of?
Yep, absolutely. So for sure, right? And again, when I will say that one of my greatest strengths has always been networking, right? While other people were out messing around with their friends, I was always talking to people like your father, right? Hyper influential people that always wanted to pass down wisdom to the younger generations, and they got some gratification from doing that. So when that pivot kind of happened and COVID came, the company that I was representing prior to COVID, they started a laboratory. And they said, hey, look, if you bring us these clients, we'll pay you X amount on every one of these samples. So, of course, I thought to myself, well, I went through the Gilbert Leadership Program. Who do I know? Right? I know the superintendent. I know the chief of police. I know all these people that are friends of mine. I jumped on the phone, started texting the superintendent. Hey, do you guys have a need for this? Yes, we do. Why? Because parents were trying to, be shiesty with their kids' COVID tests when they were playing, when they had a football game, right? Like, oh, no, he's negative. Is he though? Right? Yeah. So we were lucky enough to get Gilbert Public Schools, Scottsdale Public School Systems, right? Their districts to send exclusively to the lab that I represented locally. And that helped the patients huge, right? I mean, you make one phone call. Hey, we're just going to drive by and get tested. Cool, I'll have your results in 2 hours. Yep. Nobody else was doing that. Nope. So it was awesome. COVID, when we started hearing about the PPE shortages, right? Companies were freaking out. The Department of Justice was freaking out. We don't have masks. We don't have gloves. We need protective robes, And whenever there's an opportunity like that, it's just ripe for the taking. Yeah. It's like when a war starts and they need to buy guns from people like war dog style. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. I started making phone calls, and I got so lucky because most people are afraid to tackle something new. For me, I'm like, hey, if I've got 5 minutes of free time on my drive home, what do I have to lose? And I think that's the mindset that's different from me than everybody else. They put on their favorite country station, and I'm like, nah, I'm going to make a couple phone calls, see if I can get lucky enough to close one of these deals. So I was 3 weeks into PPE, and I had an incredible story, something that happened to me that was pretty remarkable, something where everybody else would go, no way that happened to you. Yeah. Sure. So I put myself in the position for it to happen to me. Yeah. Where everybody else was afraid to. So I started making phone calls. I called one of my buddy's wives. Her dad's the VP of Kroger grocery stores. I said, hey, would you mind if I call your dad and ask him if Kroger grocery stores need any PPE? She's like, sure. I'll do that for you. No problem. Call this guy. Hey, how you doing, man? You guys need PPE? He's like, let me transfer you over to the company that owns Kroger.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
That's called JBS Foods. They're the largest meat packing company in the world.
Wow.
But they're $1 billion company. They have facilities all over Argentina, all through South America and Europe, and their workers didn't have gloves. They didn't have masks, so they were afraid to come in and continue working.
Wow.
They just, they were afraid. They didn't have the proper equipment. And when I got to the right person, he said, we need 700,000 masks. And I'm thinking to myself, holy crap.
Yeah.
Crazy. I found somebody right now that's like, oh my God. So then, of course, I got all jacked up. I'm making phone calls to people. I'm on WhatsApp. I don't even use WhatsApp. I'm firing off to people on like LinkedIn. I don't use LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, who has in a pandemic when everybody's looking for this, like a needle in a haystack, I found this really great Jewish group that owned a warehouse that had 700,000 masks in the warehouse. And I'm thinking, oh my God.
Yeah.
Right? I call the guy and he's telling me, he goes, hey, I'd love to sell it to you, but we're celebrating a Jewish holiday. We don't work on those holidays. And the JBS food guy said, hey, I have other people looking for it as well, but he who finds it first is going to get the deal.
Okay.
And so I'm like, oh.
You're like, the race is on.
I called this guy. I'm like, look, man, who do you know in LA that can just leave the door open so Kroger grocery stores can drive their semi in and verify the product that's there?
Yeah.
And this happened within the course of 5 days, right? This isn't
so it was
like
quick.
Very quick. I mean, I'm at like 10 o'clock at night making phone calls all night long, right? Trying to make this happen.
Yeah.
I told you before, it was like a backdoor Colombian drug deal.
Yeah.
Right? It was like sketchy, right? They leave the door open. They found one of their cousins who was fine to leave the gate open to the warehouse. Kroger drove their vehicle in there. They said, how many masks do you guys have here? They're like, oh, we've got 1.2 million. They're like, great, we'll take all of them.
Oh my God.
And I got a 30-cent override on every mask. Right?
Oh my gosh.
Just for connecting the two people.
Yeah.
And in 1 week, I brought in like 650,000 in 1 week.
Wow.
I paid the guy $150,000 who brought me the deal.
Yeah.
Found the supplier of the masks.
Yeah.
And the really rewarding part is that I went to my friend's house who, they do well for themselves, but they're a typical American family, And I walked over with $10,000 in cash to her, and I just said, hey, I really appreciate you giving me that connection.
Yeah.
Right? She started bawling in her driveway, right?
Yeah.
Like, thank you so much. Not a lot of people see 10,000 cash
Yes.
stacked up like that, right?
Very exciting
So
moment.
rewarding. But that's part of the pivot, and that's part of continuously looking for those opportunities, just right place, right time.
Absolutely. And the power of networking.
Yes, 1,000%.
So talk to me about that. But you are a powerful networker.
Yes.
Oftentimes you'll call and you'll always lead with, what can I do for you? Or I found this. Do you know of anyone who needs this? And it's just asking those right questions that start to intrigue someone's mind to say, maybe I don't need it, but so-and-so might need it. Is that a skill you had to hone? Is that something that came natural to you? Did you see it in your parents? Where did you get that from?
This is going to sound crazy, but a lot of my friends' parents that were successful, like I said, I've learned a lot from Gina's a huge mentor of mine, right? Just watching how people are always connecting someone else, right? Being the connector.
Yeah.
And by doing something selflessly for somebody else, it usually comes back tenfold.
Yeah.
When I was 21, instead of me going out and partying a lot, I joined this group called the U.S. Marshals Posse, which is a law enforcement support charity here in Arizona.
Okay.
And they do all this charitable work for the community.
Yeah.
But it's like a rich guy's club. Everybody in there was 60 years old, 60-year-old doctors, gray, white hair. And
Did you
I'm
know this when
21
you
years
joined?
old. Yeah.
Oh, it was strategic.
Yeah, I knew. Yeah. Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, everything's strategic with me, right? There's always something in the background, right?
Okay.
Always working some angle. And I joined. I was 21 years old. Everybody was 40 years older than me, almost on average.
Okay.
Right? But those people were in the community, big time community. This past executive of Chevron, the guy was part of the Wrigley family, one of the executives at Wrigley, right? Another one was the vice president of Morgan Stanley. And these are all people who admire us trying to accomplish the same goal together.
Yep.
And when I ask them, hey, can I take you out for a coffee? I'd love to ask you some questions. Trevor, you remind me a lot of myself when I was your age. I'd love to go out with coffee. And then, of course, the floor seats came as tickets, right? These people just want to give back to people who show interest in what they're interested in.
That's also the power of being a young business owner, entrepreneur, is that you put yourself in that right room where if you were the same guy with the same intentions, but you were their age, they might not have felt so.
Would definitely not have been the same.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
He would have said, can I take you to coffee? And they'd be like, yeah, get with my assistant and figure it out. But because you were young, they were like, yep, because they wanted to pour into you. And so using that, so everyone listening, like that is something I always say, like, yes, you can join the young entrepreneurs group, but join the one where people are where you want to be.
Yep.
Because they'll look at you, you're the youngest one in the room, and they'll give you everything that you want and need.
All the tools.
And
you don't have to create the wheel. You follow the guidelines that your mentors pass forward to you, and I think that that's one of the biggest mistakes that young people make is they want to go out and hang out with their boys from high school. They want to go out and hang out with the people that really don't have the ambitions that they have, right? These are whiners. These are people who think, I'm just going to do the minimum and I'll be happy. It's a Tuesday. Let's go get drunk at the bar, right? No, that wasn't the way I thought. I always had something to prove. Right? Just a small chip on my shoulder that I was going to do it.
I love it. So in this case, and we've had back and forth on this, do you think youth is an advantage or a disadvantage in business?
Sure.
Or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
So in this case, when you're not trying to get business from people, you're just asking questions and asking, hey, can you help me? I think that people love helping. That makes them feel valued. It makes them feel like they have something to offer. So the older generation, for young people, for everyone listening, go talk to your old people that have crushed life. They, even if you don't know them very well, someone at your church that drives the Porsche that you want to drive, somebody who's got the lake house that you want to have, even if you don't know them very well, go talk to them, ask them, hey, can I ask you what you did to find your success? And they will be thrilled to help you out. Now, the caveat to that is I was very young when I started my consulting company. I was like 24 years old. And when I would go talk to these doctors that were just busy, I had the baby face, just looked like I didn't know Jack, They'd look at me and be like, what does this punk know? And
lack of trust.
Lack of trust, because there's no credibility with youth, right? For the most part, unless you've already accomplished something. As I've gotten older, my relationships with these doctors have gotten better. Why? Because I'm able to relate to them now. Hey, you got kids? Me too. Oh, how many businesses do you own? I own a couple as well. Oh, you got real estate over there? Awesome, man. Yeah, me too. I take my kids to the Cayman Islands once a year, right? It's like, oh man, you're a pretty in-depth guy. There's more to you than just a baby face. So that would not be considered something bad. What it taught me to do was over strategize, right? Find out what made these guys tick. Where could I relate to them on any capacity? Whether it's, hey, I know you guys go to Disneyland once a year. My family goes once a year too. What's some of your favorite things? Anything to find that connection. Right? But it's easier when you're a little older and you have a lot more going on with professional people that way. What I have found in my experiences when it comes to networking, it's way better to be young.
Okay. Because of that, they're willing to give more. We've also talked about how being a young boss, that you don't necessarily have the failures yet. And I often ask the guests, tell me about a failure. Tell me about like a really tough time. But I know you've stated like that can be a tough thing when you're coming in super green and you've never had that punch in the face yet. When the first one comes, don't let it knock you out of business. Take it as that learning lesson. Take it as that pivot moment. But let's talk about that. Tell me about some failures you've had in business.
How much time do you have? No. Honestly, there's been a handful that have kind of hit the reset button, and that's part of growth. That's part of growing up and trying to figure this out as you go. And again, does the mentorships mean everything? Yes, they do. Do they prevent you from failing? No, they don't. Because you still have your character flaws. You still have your bad habits. You still have, lack of discipline that doesn't really affect your mind on thinking a couple steps ahead. So I would say a couple of the failures that I have had was, just starting. You sit there and you overanalyze. What do I want to do? What's my next step? What am I going to do with my life? And I've had many times like that. When those big pivots happen, I sit there and I think to myself, man, maybe I should go work for somebody else. Just make $250 a year, you know? Go do the same job every day, you know?
I tell myself
And-
this
and-
every
and I
week.
I
I'm
can
like,
get paid really nicely and
Yep.
have a pretty stress-free life.
Yep.
But then I realize, screw that. I don't want to answer to anybody.
Yep.
I don't want to answer to anyone. I do not want to worry about if I'm going to lose my job because I wanted to spend the morning with my kid, you know, instead of showing up to work at 8 o'clock perfectly. So some of the failures was just that getting started, finding what direction I wanted to go next.
Yeah.
And as they always say, like analysis paralysis,
Yeah.
over analyzing is crippling,
Yeah.
right? It makes you freeze. So you just got to start, you know, at least from one of the small downsides is that. As you have heard, you know, I've had lawsuits that are new to me.
Yeah.
Right. You know, that I shouldn't have been in, but it's a part of business.
Yeah.
You know, if you're out there, you're kicking in doors, you're making a name for yourself and trying to introduce people. You know, I got sued for being the guy that introduced someone to a bad partner. Right. I just got lumped into it.
Yep.
You know, I won the lawsuit. I've never been sued before, but it cost me $100,000.
Yeah.
Now, at a W-2 position where you're making $200 a year, that's a really big, bad position to be in.
Yeah.
Are you ready to unlock your full potential and achieve your career goals? Subscribe to the Young Boss podcast for weekly inspiration and practical advice. Keep listening for more tips and tricks. Now, back to listening.
What I was telling somebody else the other day, you know, about 2 years ago was my most recent oopsies.
Okay, tell me.
Right? Because let my guard down for 1 year. I convinced one of these W-2 labs convinced me to come in and be their VP of sales, right?
Okay.
Beautiful salary, health insurance for the kids, right?
It's tempting.
You get a portion of the ownership after you do this for long enough.
Okay.
It's just feeding you garbage, right? In the years prior, I was making $500-600 a year.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, you know, but those pivots are so hard. At least I'll have consistency here. I'll try that train.
Okay.
Right. COVID happened. That company went completely belly up. Right. Didn't get any ownership in it. Right. And I got the lawsuit that happened to me that year. When I was sitting there working my W-2 job, I was cash heavy. I said, man, what else can I do? Maybe I should invest in real estate. I started investing with my neighbor who convinced me to work with him. I gave him $210,000 and I lost it all.
Oh.
He lost it. That's a big pill to swallow, right? I mean,
Yep.
post-tax, 210 is like $300K.
Yep.
And this was all 2 years ago. So I lost the W-2 job, the safety net. I lost the health insurance. I lost the 210,
Yep.
all because of like the COVID and the market changing in the housing market.
Yeah.
Obviously had this lawsuit going on and I had to reinvent myself.
Yeah.
What direction was I going to go?
Yeah. Can I ask you,
Yeah.
in that moment, we haven't really touched a ton on the podcast about mental health, but entrepreneurs face
Bad.
so many things. Like in that moment,
My relationship with my wife was terrible.
Yeah.
I felt like I was drowning. I'd come home at night from going out and grinding, trying to figure out what I was going to do, and I would just sit there like an empty shell.
Yeah.
And my amazing wife, you know, she's just, are you okay? You know, like, what, do you not like love me anymore? You're not like the shiny twinkle in your eye, happy guy. And you don't want to put forth any of that stress on your family because you have created this environment for them that is stress-free, that is happy, like Disneyland.
Yep.
Right?
You're
just
trying
like,
to
wow,
protect them.
Protecting them. I shelter them from the reality of what life is, which is very difficult, right? So 3 o'clock in the morning, night sweats. And if I'll tell you this, the one thing that helped me get through all that,
Tell me.
I found fitness, right? I started
Okay.
going to the gym.
Yeah.
And even if I'm not super jacked, I go to the gym every morning now.
Yep.
I prioritize. And when you say, hey, what are some of the struggles? When I first started my first company, I was coming home to overeat, overindulge, right? I didn't put any time for myself. I spent time with my kids, so they went to bed. Then I spent time with my wife. I went to bed, woke up, went to work, did it all over again. No
Yep.
time for Trevor.
Yep.
During this whole entire time where I was going through this hard time, I said, you know what? I need to prioritize my mental health.
Yeah.
I started going to the gym every morning at 5:15 because the family and everyone was sleeping.
Yeah.
So it didn't take away from them.
Okay.
But I had to sacrifice
Yep.
more sleep.
Yep.
Right? And that, just being there, you know, being in a position where you're working through your problems, right? And instead of lifting weights, you're like lifting your problems, you know? And I go every day. Even if it's a day when I'm sick and I just show up, walk around the gym and leave. I say,
Okay.
I still showed up.
Yep.
I showed up,
Yep.
right? When I'm sick and I don't want to go to the gym, I'll go sit in the sauna or the hot tub.
Yep.
Right? And I'll listen to an audiobook, right? So it's
just the practice, and it's giving you the time.
It's the discipline and the consistency that has given me that ability to work through those problems without projecting onto the family.
Yeah.
Because that's what it was kind of becoming when you have all of that stress is you just snapped at the kids.
Yeah.
You know, are you okay? Like, you haven't talked to me all afternoon. Yeah, I've been talking to people all day.
Yeah, like I'm tired.
I'm smoked.
Yeah.
You know, so those are the struggles. Obviously, getting back to it, I did a ton of research on asset protection, on asset sheltering, on LLCs, corporations. Where do I want to start my next one?
Yeah.
Right? Because we were going through that lawsuit with the old one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, where's the benefits of Delaware? What's the benefits of opening in Wyoming? What's the benefits of Nevada?
Yeah.
And, you know, so I started my Delaware Corp and just had to relearn a whole new product, a whole new clientele. Yes, they were doctors, but they were doctors I never really called on before. And I had days that I would just pull off the side of the road and go, this is really hard. But I kept going, and I told somebody this yesterday. I was spending $5,000 a month for 4 months of just lunches, coffees, driving far, gas, right? I did that for 4 months, and then month 5, it's like my first commission check was $35,000. Month 6, $75,000. Month 7, $150,000, right? And if it's not 6 figures a month now, then it's a bad month.
Okay.
Right? But the point is you just got to keep your head down, believe in what you're doing is going to make a difference.
Yeah.
And you'll pull yourself out eventually.
Yeah. It's that power of consistency and that power of believing in yourself, because I'm sure there's many moments, many times where I love that you shared that you're trying to curate a relationship with your kids where they're not knowing the stress dad's going through at work and they're not seeing and feeling all of that, but you were going through that. It doesn't take away from you going through it, but you can't spread it to them.
You can't share.
But then every month that passes, it's almost getting worse for you.
Yes.
And you're like, and I still can't, you know.
It's trial by fire.
Yes. And just to keep going, keep pushing, and know that, like, really genuinely believing in yourself and just saying, like, it's gonna work. Like, it's going to work. It's a numbers game. It's an eventual. And even that first check, you were probably like super happy for it, but
Jacked.
also like,
I was like,
we can do it.
honey, we got $35,000, right?
Yes.
Like, hell yeah.
Finally.
You know, and one of the other things that I'll tell you that helped me mentally, because really 95% of it is mindset.
Yes.
Right? Is you're going to laugh at me, and most people do when I tell them this, but I spent a lot of time on TikTok, right?
Okay.
I followed like David Goggins, Brad Lee. I followed Jordan Peterson. I started following these
mindset
influential
guys,
mindset guys that are just like, quit being a bee, get up, get to work.
Yep.
You're a big dog, you're hungry. Get out there.
Having
and I
them
like
in your
pep
ear
talk
helped.
myself. I'm like, God, you're such a biatch. Get to work. Let's go. Right? Like, do I want to leave? It's noon. It's hard. I just got shut down by 3 clients in a row. I want to go home where I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
No, screw that. I'm going to stick out here because that's what discipline and consistency is.
Yeah.
Right? And those traits and qualities that you can learn from mentors, right? I think the one thing that's so unique about youth today is that there's resources everywhere. When you said, hey, how did you find your wisdom initially? It was from my dad. Like, where did you find yours?
Yeah.
Right? Your dad.
Yeah.
Where did everybody else find theirs?
Yeah.
A family member, an uncle, a brother, a dad.
Yeah.
It was like one person that gave them one point of view.
Yeah.
The kids today and the young bosses today have the ability to seek wisdom from everywhere.
Yeah.
It's free.
Yep.
Free wisdom and free perspective. All you have to do is absorb it, see what you believe, and then if it doesn't work for you, then try something else.
Yeah.
Right? But at least you can filter through the garbage. And if you take one thing that changes your mindset away from it, you're way ahead of the person that only ever listened to their dad.
Yes.
Right?
That is very valid and important to know, because it is also daunting. There's so much information out there. Who do you listen to? You know, what is the truth? And so I think having that filter as you go through it, but also seeking people who are giving you the message that you know you need to hear in that moment.
Right.
The person who says, go home, relax, enjoy, you had a tough day. It's like, you knew, like, that's not going to help me be my best boss. That's not going to help me be the best person I need to be in this situation. So I'm actually going to listen to the person who says the thing that's like, ouch,
yeah,
but I needed to hear it.
It stings, but it's the truth.
Yes.
And one of the things that I would say for young adults and young bosses or people who want to become young bosses is it's, you know, everyone says like your net worth is your network.
Yeah.
Right? You're the accumulation of the 5 people you spend most of your time with.
Yep.
And I realized that a lot later in life. You know, I kind of, it's not easy to say, hey, look, it's not that we're not friends anymore, but I need to start focusing my available time, which is my most valuable resource, on being around people who are going to pull me up, who are going to challenge me, who are going to say, hey, let me help you with that, you know, champion you. Right?
Have you had that conversation with friends or people close to you?
I have. I could show you text messages from just last night. My group of friends, and you know who those are.
Yes.
It's been, Trevor doesn't really hang out with us anymore. Trevor, you know, he doesn't ever come to the Sunday barbecues with the whole crew. Yeah, it's because that's my only time I get to spend with my kids.
Yeah.
Right? Like, those are my favorite people on the planet.
Yeah.
You know, and we went to this trip with all my friends probably 6 months ago, and it was when that switch flipped like this, right?
Tell me.
It was, I had the lawsuit that was going on. It was a Monday. It was a wedding in Flagstaff.
Okay.
Right? And they're like, hey, can the groomsmen come and help set up the venue? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Well, I'm here setting up the venue, but I'm on the phone talking to my COO. I just hired her. I'm reviewing contracts on my phone, things that are mass priority, right? But these are things that you can't expect your friends to experience if they work their W-2 job.
Right.
Like they don't
know what you're going through.
Know what you're going through.
No.
But they're the friends that are like, oh, Trevor, you're working too much. You care too much about money, dude. Just relax. You know, and you're going, dude, I'm in a hole. I'm working like this next breath of air is going to save my butt.
Company. Yeah.
Yeah, save my company. So you can't expect that. And so, you know, like every one of these mentors out there, all they ever talk about is finding the people who will challenge you, hold you accountable, who will say, hey, what's the next business you're going to start?
Yeah.
And so what I traded away from was the friends that talked about dumb shit. Excuse my language.
Yep.
Remember high school? You remember when we used to do this in high school? And you're like, God, this is so stupid, right? Because I started having the conversations with them, and it wasn't being reciprocated. It was like lost, you know, right over their head. And I realized quickly that you can't expect them to understand where you're going from, because everyone's on their own journey, right? But if you're around people that are on that journey or have accomplished what you're trying to accomplish, it accelerates your journey like that.
Yeah.
Right? And it will put you into hyper mode.
Yeah, I think I've had quite a few of those conversations over the last couple of years, and it's been hard because it is emotional. It's like, it doesn't mean I don't love you, but I have such limited time. And if every time I leave my conversation with you, I'm not leaving better with something that I need to carry me forward, I have to limit those combos.
Right.
And I'm not trying to be rude, but it kind of is what it is. And you start to see yourself drift away from certain people because every time you do speak or communicate with them, it's past stuff, it's history, or it's stuff that's bringing you down. And it's like, not that every conversation needs to be positive, but when you are surrounding yourself with people who are doing more and better than you, usually those conversations are positive.
Yeah. And the people who are doing more and better than you are always happy for your successes.
Always.
The people who are doing less than you are always, you know,
why?
Well, dude, why do you need that?
Yeah.
Like, why not? Why you know, one of the things that I would say that the average person lacks is imagination, right? They say that if you're comfortable with mediocrity, that you lack imagination, right? If you're comfortable in that little car, never taking a vacation because it's easy, it's comforting, right? You lack imagination then, because who wouldn't want to be with their family on $1 million yacht, flying, you know, cruising over to the Bahamas, right? That would be badass.
I think
you
so.
know? And so one of the things that I've always mentioned is that if you talk to these small town people, you get small town mindsets, right? Hey, what do you want to do this year? You know, I told people this year, I was like, man, my goal is to get financially free in the next couple of years. I need to get $12 million. That way I'm going to be cash flowing. I will be financially free. Okay. What are you going to do? Whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
maybe something that makes me happy, spending time with my kids.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go to Colorado for 2 months out of every summer
Yeah.
and escape the heat with my children, right? But I'll at least be able to say I am in control.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas everybody else doesn't have any control.
No. Obviously, being in the medical device space and your father is an OBGYN, there is a lot of money to be made in that industry. Do you feel like for somebody who is looking to start their own business and they don't necessarily know what they want, that's a good field to go into? Or is it something that you really need to know what you're doing first before you get into that?
You don't. You do not need to know what you're doing.
Okay.
Right? So I could if I could cherry pick somebody in this room or, on the edge of the street over here and say, hey, if you got the willingness to learn and the hustle and the drive, you can crush it.
Okay.
You don't even have to have a high school diploma.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the old school way of medical sales,
Yeah.
where you're talking about like Stryker or
Yeah.
Medtronics,
Yeah.
they want those college athletes, that got the degrees.
Good looking, yeah.
And that's great.
Yeah.
Hey, whatever, man. But those guys make $250 a year. And they're gone away from their families.
Yep.
They're on their third divorce because they're working like dogs. You talk about my father, right? And we learn from the people we're around the most.
Yeah.
I learned from my father, right? One of the things I learned was, he was loved by all. He worked hard. He pulled himself out of some of the most incredible hard times, resilient, right? He was just able to handle stress so well. And he provided a great childhood for us. But one of the things that I always take away from is, he wasn't home much. He was seeing patients all day, delivering babies all night. And I'd hear him walking across the wooden floor at 1 a.m, and that's when I know he'd be home. And 20 minutes later, he'd be walking right back out the door to go deliver another baby. And I said to myself, you know what? I really like the financial security that he had. What I don't like and what I'd like to do differently is I'd like to be there for every breakfast. I'd like to be home every night for dinner. I'd like to be present.
Yeah.
Right? And one of the unique things that young bosses need to learn is take your parents' advice with a grain of salt. If you're trying to accomplish something that they have not accomplished, their minds can't comprehend what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
They don't know the tools you're seeking to find your success.
Yeah.
So even though I love my father,
Yeah.
and I think he was a phenomenal father figure, he did the best he could, provided great security for us, is he the right guy to talk to about my business? No, because his mind is putting limitations on it. When I tell them what I make monthly, they go, I just don't know how you do that. I worked every day, 60 hours a week, and I had people's lives in my hands. How do you do that? Well, you believe going to college, getting a degree, working 60 hours a week is the only way that you can become successful.
Yeah.
And it used to be that the big house, which you've seen,
Yeah.
and the cars was your status
Was your
quo.
end game.
It was your success.
Yeah.
Right? It was like, I've got the big house.
Yep.
Now success is measured by your time,
Yep.
your financial freedom.
The game has
The
changed.
game is a completely different game.
Yep.
So you can't expect the old players to guide you sometimes
Yep.
through the new game.
Yeah.
Like I said, I love my parents. I seek wisdom from them often.
Yes.
But at times, I still have to say, you don't know shit about this. So
Yeah.
I appreciate your advice, but I'm going to find
He's just not playing the game you
Yeah.
want to play. He
No.
has a different end game goal, and what is success to him isn't what success to you is.
For sure.
Okay. On that note, who is one of your biggest role models?
I think that there's a difference between who's a role model and who you have learned the most from.
Okay.
Right? So I guess I'll put that as kind of like the caveat there. I say that my brother, I learned a lot from him.
Yes.
He was the guy that was, and I mean this in the best of ways, but he was compulsive. When he wanted something, he had to have it right then and there. And because of that, at a young age, he had some of these financial issues where it hurts your credit or it hurts this. And I don't want to go through that.
Yep.
Right? So I'm going to do the opposite of that.
Okay.
Right? I learned a lot from my father, right? Like, hey, that's great, and my father's my hero. So that's my hero. That's the person who has given me like 95% of my guidance and wisdom, right? So if you say who's somebody you look up to, but today, if you were to ask me, I'd say like these authors of these books, even though they're not people that I know personally, that I can call on the phone and say, hey, it's a reference guide. It's a crumb trail, breadcrumbs to the map of where you want to be.
Yeah.
And back to the resources that we have through Instagram, TikTok, through these professional networking groups.
Yeah.
You can go and seek that wisdom. So like Jordan Peterson, he gives great advice on marriage,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
your time. David Goggins, great advice on overcoming hard times,
Yep.
right? He's great at tough talking you. So depending on what I'm looking for, I go to his page.
Okay.
Right? Brad Lee talks a lot about business ownership.
Yeah.
And inspiring you to do these things.
Yep.
I don't know these people.
No.
But
they're still role models to you.
But they're role models to me.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just funny, it's like, not to get into politics, but you see some of these influential leaders in our country that are doing some really remarkable things, and you say, wow, how did they do that? That's what I want to know, so I can duplicate that.
Yeah.
They say imitation's the greatest form of flattery.
Yep.
Right?
I agree. What aspect of your business brings you the most joy?
Obviously, we do this to make sure that we're improving the patient's experience. The products that I bring to my doctor's offices, it is to help the patient first and foremost.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of that warm and fuzzy feeling when we do something really cool that the doctor wasn't able to do before.
Yeah.
But now he's able to.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the first part about it. The second part, which I was just discussing with someone this morning, was the person that I have become over the last 2 years of all these trials, tribulations, all the bull crap, all the stress, all the wisdom and knowledge and perspective that I gained over the last 2 years. I bring the relationships I have with my doctors are so different. When you're young and you're just the sales rep, that's all you are. Just a tool to them.
Yeah.
In what I've done for myself is I've been able to talk to them about taxes, about LLCs. Hey, what are you doing with this money you're making? Here's where you should invest it. Here's where you should put it. Oh, you can get a tax write-off on this. Taxes are coming up. And they're looking at me like a completely different person. We're friends. We're part of their family.
When did you start to notice that transition?
In the last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you think it's something in your energy and conversations with them?
I think so. And it's not that you walk in with a resume of what you can do for them. I think it takes time. I had a doctor last night call me at 9:30 at night. Never calls me at 9:30 at night. We have a very work professional relationship. Calls me. We start talking about, making money. We start talking about where to put your taxes, your tax money. I talked to him for 30 minutes on the phone last night. My wife goes,
Who are you talking to?
Is that one of your doctors? Like, yeah. I was like, he's never talked to me on the phone for 30 minutes before.
Yeah.
We're talking about kids, where to put money aside, where to put investment portfolios that we're in, what up and coming stocks are happening. And when they start realizing that you're not a one trick pony, that you have a lot of depth to you that can benefit them in other aspects of their life, that's when the relationship becomes super glue tight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's that relationship of bringing it beyond work, and you're letting it spill over into life. And I think you being open with your different things you're going through, it's either going to be them saying, "Oh my God, me too," or not connecting. And okay, again, you pivot until you find out, how do I connect with this person?
You got to keep strategizing. You got to keep growing as a person. I started reading a lot of these books, the Tom Green book of 33 Strategies of War.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite books. They say that, that book was on like the top 10 list of every successful executive in this country. Right? And so really good book because it helps you figure out the type of person you're talking to and how to strategize with them and to get what you want ultimately.
What do you think are 3 tactical tips for someone who wants to start a business?
I would say, a lot of people like to do what makes them happy, right? And I say, when in history has men particularly ever done things that make them happy? Were they happy building the pyramids? The Great Wall? Were they happy in World War I, II, Vietnam? Were they happy then, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't focus on things that make me happy, right? What makes me happy is providing opportunity for the people who I love.
Okay.
Right? But when I go and I work, I'm there to do a job, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of these people are like, oh, I want to go do what I love to do or what makes me happy. Well, if there's no demand to be an artist, you're going to be broke and you're not going to, and life will be very difficult for you. But you'll be happy, so that's fine. I say find where there's a demand, right? There's so many ways that you could see a problem that needs to be fixed. And you can, with the resources available, figure out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It's like Mike Rowe, I think, the guy from Dirty Jobs, right? He always talks about these blue-collar jobs.
Yeah.
I talked to my portfolio manager. He manages $700 million by himself. And I said, where does most of that money come from? Like, who gives you that money? People in construction, roofers, plumbers, tile layers, people who own big painting companies.
Yep.
You don't have to have a skill. You can go learn a skill.
Yep.
You just have to have the courage to start and to bet on yourself and be the person you need. So, those are some of the highest yielding jobs you can have.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be medical sales making $250 a year, or however much you want to make, or being the analyst for Honeywell.
Yeah.
You could chase your dreams, find something you want to do, but most importantly, start. Don't overanalyze it.
Yeah.
Don't get caught up in the small details.
Yeah.
You'll figure those out along the way.
Yeah.
Find something that you can manage and go for it.
Yeah. So no analysis paralysis, figure out your thing. But also it doesn't necessarily, it may or may not be the thing that makes you happy, but that shouldn't be the primary focus.
But, find something that makes you happy within reason.
Yeah.
You don't hate your job. I don't hate my job.
Right.
I do it, and I like it when it's going well, and it's fine.
Yeah.
Right? But it's bearable. I like it. It's fine.
I always tell people this, I found a job or a career where I'm using my skills. And it's not about the job or the title or what I'm doing. It's me using my skills every day. And that's what makes me happy. So if I would have said what makes me happy? Fashion, clothes, makeup, let me go that direction. No, it's what are my actual skills? What job will use those skills? And then that's what's going to make you money.
Exactly right. You work towards your strengths. And just hearing you say that, it's kind of like a light bulb moment for me. Because I think you're absolutely right. If you can identify what your strengths are. Someone for me, what are my strengths? Talking to people, communicating, helping people, right? Developing those relationships, networking, giving back to people.
So it's there's a million jobs.
Right.
You could use all those.
Right.
And you just found your vehicle.
Exactly right.
This is the vehicle. Does it matter what it is? No, because
sure.
you could use those skills over here and do something else and be just as successful.
Exactly. And if you're using your strengths to win, you're going to be happy.
Yep.
Right? Of course, when your clients are happy, I'm happy.
Yep.
I'm using those strengths. My weaknesses, I'm terrible with organization. Right?
Okay.
Little tiny details, because my mind is processing so fast. I'm thinking so high level.
Yeah.
The little stuff always comes out from under the rug.
Yeah.
Right? But that's why you hire your weaknesses.
Yep.
Right? My COO that I just hired, very analytical person.
Good.
Very numbers driven, and she is somebody who's much smarter than I am.
Yeah.
She's 51. She's Indian, right? She was the first woman to be hired by Goldman & Sachs as a day trader.
Oh, wow.
Right? She's accomplished a lot. She's a corporate executive. She's an AI expert, right? I hate technology. I can't even use Excel, right? I'm terrible with that. But you hire your strengths and you hire people who are smarter than you.
Yeah.
Because they continuously bring you up to their level.
Yeah.
Whereas I find that a lot of people hire their friends or they hire somebody that they can afford.
Yeah.
Right? Hiring someone that's cheap.
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to improve you any.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's,
and you get what you pay for.
Yeah, you get what you pay for. So it's funny, right? Like I said, you mentioning that before, just go after your strengths.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
That does make me happy.
Yep, using those skills every day. Well, it was so amazing having you on. I feel like you shared so much good info. So thank you for being here. If people want to learn more about you, what you do, where do they find you?
I am on Instagram. I try to keep a low key. I try to just
you are like a fly under the radar guy.
In silence.
You're
right?
like the secret millionaire next door. That's what
totally.
I feel like is your vibe.
Totally. I mean, I drive the crappiest car you've ever seen, right? It's because that's not important to me. It's not moving the needle towards my goal of financial freedom.
Yeah.
Right. Having a depreciating asset that's cool for who?
Yeah.
Right. All the wealthiest people they drive the Priuses or they do this. So I stay low key, but obviously if they have a way of connecting with you, please share my information. My name's Trevor Watters. You can look me up on Facebook or Instagram, and I would love to give back to people who are interested. So any of these young bosses or wannabe young bosses, the free time that I have, nothing makes me feel more fulfilled than passing down something that I've learned to help somebody else.
I love it.
So please feel free to reach out to me.
I love it. Thanks so much for being here.
Of course.
I really appreciate it. And thanks for listening to another episode of Young Boss with your host, Isabel Garino. Be sure to like, share, and follow on Instagram and TikTok, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And let us know, do you have a strength that you could turn into a business? Let us know. We want to know. See you next time.